The next stage of our journey is to travel to the beautiful Loire Valley via Chartres. That will be our lunch stop, site of the famous Gothic masterpiece, the Cathedral of Chartres. Then after lunch we're off to see the beautiful medieval city of Amboise, an imposing jewel alongside the Loire River. It's here we'll visit Leonardo da Vinci's villa, where the famous Italian spent the last years of his life and advising the French king, Francois I. We'll also visit the beautiful Chateau Chenonceau, sitting so superbly above the Cher River. And using Amboise as our base, we'll travel further into central France to visit the provincial landscape so familiar to Chopin on his summer stays at Nohant. And we'll inspect the Maison de Georges Sand. In 1838, composer Frédéric Chopin's doctor had suggested that he head to Majorca and a mild winter climate. So Chopin and his lover, Aurore Dudevant-Dupin, a successful French author writing under the pseudonym Georges Sand, and her two children headed for the island. They stayed in a monk's cell at Valdemosa, amid beautiful surroundings. But it was to be their winter of discontent. The year had produced unusually heavy rains, and so by May of the next year, 1839, the party headed to Marseille. And then it was the next month that Chopin was invited to spend the summer at the country residence of the eccentric writer, who, although coming from a provincial noble family, had created a scandal in Paris by wearing men's clothing and adopting rather masculine manners. But this was the beginning of Chopin's series of summers spent at Maison de Georges Sand at Nohant, where he wrote many of his major works. To visit the house today, and its gardens and the small forest that form part of the estate, is to walk where Chopin and Sand spent many months together, sometimes happy, sometimes openly hostile towards each other. The adjacent buildings, such as the Auberge de la Petite Fillette and the Romanesque Church of St. Martin, with its 12th century frescoes, add a rustic contrast to the stateliness of the Georges Sand property. Many famous literary, art and music personalities came to stay at this house during the early 19th century, including Liszt, Balzac and Eugène Delacroix. Chopin stayed here each summer, with the exception of 1840, in the years between 1839 and 1846, when the relationship ended. Georges Sand had become annoyed at a growing relationship between Chopin and her own daughter Solange, after Chopin had started giving the daughter piano lessons. He also supported the daughter when she wanted to marry a debt-ridden sculptor, Auguste Clesinger, which further enraged the writer. Aurore Dupin could trace her line back to Frederick Augustus I of Saxony, who later became the Polish king Augustus II. But the bloodline was altered by numerous affairs which led to many illegitimate births, including that of Aurore herself. However, after her father was killed in a riding accident, the girl's grandmother brought her to Nohant and instructed her in the manners of a child of noble birth. After marrying Casimir Dudevant in 1822, the couple had two children, and with those births, Aurore planted two cedar trees in front of the house at Nohant. They are today towering giants in the small forest that she created there. It's hard not to feel the presence of Frédéric Chopin in this house during a visit to its impressive interiors where so many family events occurred. On the ground floor you can walk into the kitchen where Georges Sand herself spent a great deal of time helping to prepare many of the meals. The row of individual bells leading to the guest rooms are a reminder of just how busy the household was in the early to mid-19th century. The gathering place at 5 p.m. for the guest was the dining room, which seems to now echo with the many lively conversations of the distinguished people who were once seated around the oval dining table beneath the Venetian chandelier in this room. After dinner they would move next door to the drawing room, with its Louis XVI furniture and impressive array of family portraits gracing the walls. Another room was the sparse bedroom of Aurore's grandmother, with its Polish-style canopy bed. George Sand loved her grandmother and set up a small concealed study just off the bedroom where she worked on her early writing. Also on the ground floor is the puppet theatre in the wall, where George Sand's son, Maurice, created puppets and performances for the household. And alongside is the small stage where live actors could perform plays with provincial themes. Then there's the amazing main staircase, which was used frequently by Chopin as he ascended those stairs to his workroom, quilt padded by George Sand to prevent any disturbance to her other guests. The writer's bedroom, where she died in June 1876, is known as the Blue Room, after the beautifully decorated Louis XVI walls. Adjacent is Chopin's room, where the composer stayed during his many pastoral summers. It no longer resembles his real quarters, as George Sand had it partitioned to create two rooms after their relationship ended, and it's where she then created her own study, often working there until the early hours of the morning. There is no doubt that George Sand loved music. She herself played the harp, and she is said to have once curled up under the piano as Liszt played in her house. She encouraged Chopin, and they both wrote their individual masterpieces in literary and music respectively in this house. Conflict arose in 1845 as Chopin performed with her daughter Solange playing four-hand piano pieces, which led to serious misunderstandings between the pair. By the end of the next year, 1846, the affair was over. Chopin's health deteriorated later, and he died in Paris in 1849, aged 39. Maison de Georges Sand at Nohant, now owned by the state, stands as a monument to the extraordinary talents of two very gifted people.